Money isn't the root of all evil. The way we love money is the root of all evil. So it's a love of it over. So when you're loving money over people, that is definitely the biggest problem. But it runs deep.
Welcome to the Young Money Podcast with Ross Marais. This episode of the Young Money Podcast is brought to you by More Time Financial, a financial planning, money management and financial education business helping young Australians to make smarter decisions with their money.
Welcome back to another episode of the Young Money Podcast. I'm your host, Ross Marais, and in today's episode, I chat with mental health counsellor Noni Croft from Croft Confidence to discuss probably one of the deeper topics that we've had to date on the podcast, and that is the topic of mental health and money. So mental health is something that I personally feel undereducated and pretty misinformed about, so I thought it was best to bring in an expert and discuss this very much still taboo topic. So throughout this episode, I'll chat with Noni about the role of a mental health counsellor and how she helps her clients, some of the different types of mental health conditions and the common misconceptions surrounding mental health in general, the negative effects she sees money having on her clients' personal mental health and also their relationships, just how common and severe money stress can be in today's society, as well as financial abuse in relationships and much, much more. I hope you enjoyed the episode. Now, before we get started on today's episode, this is just a friendly reminder in order to keep our lawyers happy that in preparing this podcast, myself and any contributors have not taken into account any particular person's objectives, financial situation or needs. So before acting on any of this information, you should consider its relevance to your personal circumstances and if required, seek the assistance of a licensed professional.
I'm Noni Croft. I'm 32. And I'm a mental health counsellor.
Excellent. Now, for me, myself included, and probably other people listening, what is a mental health counsellor?
So, a mental health counsellor focuses on the spiritual, emotional, and psychological health of someone who is either feeling well or feeling unwell mentally.
Okay. And a summary of your kind of general day in the life or day in the practice of a mental health counsellor?
Yeah, sure.
If there is one.
There's no like stock standard particular day, but generally making sure that people are going well in who I've previously seen. I make sure that I do daily touches with people who have seen me and just check up on them, see how they're going. And then I'll see people via Zoom majorly. Yep. So I'm conducting Zoom sessions where they get to stay in their pajamas if they want and have a big cup of tea and wrapped up in their blankets and talking to me via Zoom.
Yeah.
And then it's clinical notes and just following up on any other personal development that I want for my own business.
Yeah, excellent. And working with individuals, couples, businesses, or what's the...
the works, definitely. I work a lot in the field of businesses, so I help a lot of businesses and their staff in regards to staff mental health, which keeps them in the business longer and prevents any sort of exiting from businesses because
that
mental
retention.
health... Yeah, definitely retention. A lot of individuals who are suffering with things like from domestic violence or addiction, depression and anxiety. And then heaps of kids. I work with a lot of kids in the sexual assault field. Okay. So kids have experienced that.
Sure.
And their families.
Yeah. So on the business side, do you see a lot more businesses taking that up, like becoming more and more common?
Yeah, heaps. Yeah. It's definitely an upward trend in general workplaces because they see the value in it.
And across the board, like how long have you been doing this for?
I've been in the field for 12 years.
Okay. Yeah. And have you seen a change in the mental health space over that period of time? Definitely.
There's a lot less stigma, although the stigma still exists.
Yeah.
But a lot more prioritising of people's mental health and a lot more openness around like men and guys and older guys having an opportunity to say how they're feeling, which I think is so important.
Okay. And
a lot of people speaking up about things that used to be taboo.
Yeah. Well, I think probably a good place to start is your definition, I guess, of what is mental health, because I feel, from my perspective and what I see on a day-to-day basis, it's such a broad term that kind of just gets mental health. It gets thrown out there. So is there what's your best way of, I guess, explaining what it is?
Yeah, so we all have mental health. So everyone who is breathing has mental health. Then there's mental health illness, which is the opposite of having, a well-balanced emotional and physical state.
Sure.
So I guess I'd probably describe mental health as a rather broad subject as the psychological well-being. Okay. So whether you're experiencing abnormalities or maladaptive behaviours or poor emotional states.
Okay.
Is that...
Yeah, no.
Does that help?
Yeah. And there's obviously different types of conditions and illnesses and effects. So do you want to touch on maybe the main ones or the ones that kind of... Because I feel like everything just gets lumped together. It's like, he's got a mental health condition, she's got a mental health condition. It's like, what type? Is there different types? So.
Yeah, there are heaps of different types, and they are kind of categorised. So you have mood disorders, which are things like depression and bipolar.
Okay.
Anxiety disorders, which are a very broad reach of anxiety. And you've got psychotic disorders like schizophrenia. And then you've got things like addictions, so substance abuse disorders and eating disorders. And then you can also go into traumatic disorders, so post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, and perpetrator-induced stress disorder.
Okay.
So there's a lot of them.
Yeah.
And often they can coexist as like comorbidities. So one person who might have anxiety may also present with depression.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, so they do blend into each other sometimes too.
And obviously it goes from a mild up to a severe. But there's obviously a scale of different types.
Yep.
I guess it's probably such a broad topic that we could spend hours talking about. But the common misconceptions that you see in your field of mental health and different mental health conditions, is there many? Yeah,
there's heaps of misconceptions. I guess from a patient point of view, a lot of people are afraid that they're not going to be believed, which is deeply sad, particularly when you come from a child's perspective or anyone's perspective. I think everyone has a right to be believed that what they feel has happened to them has.
Yeah.
And another misconception that it's going to be scary or they're going to sit in a room and cry and be in fetal position the whole time. That's actually a stigma I really work hard to break in my practice. Is that a lot of the time people are like, they feel lighthearted and they laugh with me and they go, oh, okay, like clear perspective. And it's not like about, you don't have to get sadder.
Yeah.
If you're already sad, you don't have to get sadder in the counselling space. You can actually feel like lighter after it and feel like, oh, I'm actually getting somewhere.
Sure.
It doesn't have to, because a lot of people avoid it because it's like, oh, I'm already in pain. Nah,
yeah,
no thanks.
Sure. Yeah.
That it's expensive or time consuming or that you have to be in it forever. Ideally, I don't want to keep people in therapy for their whole life. It all depends on what they're presenting with.
Yeah.
But ideally, I'm doing my work right if they are actually moving on with their life and empowered with their mental health.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And I guess the public perception, so I guess someone like myself been very fortunate to not have many significant traumas or not been through any episodes that I'm aware of mental health or conditions or anything like that. So I put myself quite fortunate, but I know a lot of friends and people that have. So I guess from the public's perspective or from a business perspective or the general public, what are the misconceptions of, I guess, that stigma or that branded, that employee's got a mental health condition or something like that?
In regards to that, it would be most people some people have suffered quite a lot, but it's all about perception, so how people perceive themselves. So if you've got a staff member who is struggling, they're probably more critical on themselves than you'll ever imagine. And so all they really need is you to listen. We don't ever have to fix each other.
Sure.
So a lot of the time when someone, you're noticing your mate is having a rough week, a lot of the time it's not about going, hey mate, you need help, because that feels quite awkward as a general public person going, I don't want to intrude on their life. Just listening. And listening to hear them and go, all right, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with you, but there are options for you. So the general public knowing that there are heaps of options for people.
Okay.
And it's very helpful to go, hey mate, you might need a hand, but mostly just listen.
Sure.
Does that help at all?
Yeah, no, it does. And I think you've probably answered some of this already, but the ways you do help people, I guess it is through listening and just being there for someone to express what's going through or what they're going through, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So is there anything else that you do that may be a little bit different or unique to the way you help people or how you help people?
Absolutely. I don't paint everyone with the same brush. I have lots of different ways and like technical skills of how I help people. So some of it might be behavioural, some of it might be positive psychology. So a lot of the times in mental health field, we look at people and we go, you've got an illness. Yeah. But the flip side of that is, what are your strengths? What are you good at? Like, what are you like killing it in?
Yeah.
So a lot of the time, instead of just focusing on what's going wrong, I'll help people focus on what is going right.
Okay.
And turn up the volume on that.
Yeah.
And start to get a clearer perspective on how they can move forward past the things that have been horrific or bad.
Sure.
And just heaps of different great skills, working with emotional freedom technique, which is a somatic or physical body. It changes how our amygdala in our brain works. So working with brain science and working with strategies and working with behavioural change, and there's just so much that can be done in the space, and it's a uniquely picked up per client or per business, or the culture of a business can be shaped with really good mental health skills.
Yeah, excellent. I guess going back to you've been in it for 12 years, have you seen, or how have you seen that conversation change? Like, do you think that these conditions or issues have been there forever, or has it just it's come to the surface more and that maybe the taboos dropped away slightly, not completely, but slightly, that now it's coming to the surface that there are these issues in society or these people are dealing with?
Yeah, I think that's a very complex one because society changes so rapidly.
Yeah.
I think it's always existed. I think, so if we go back to, the wars, when people came home from war, they just didn't talk about it.
Sure.
But nowadays, PTSD is actually part of what is covered for surviving war veterans. So that shows a big change in society's understanding of what traumatic things happen to people and how they need help. I think it's always existed, but I also think the pressures of society have changed as well. So technology's got a huge impact on how we relate to each other, how secure we feel in our environment, internal and external environments. So I think people understand it more, but it still probably feels a bit weird because I think humans are wired to kind of see something different and be like, I'm not sure if I like that or not.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think it's overcoming our natural instinct as well as being more compassionate and growing more compassionate societies. Yeah,
because I guess I'm sure you see it more than I do, but the statistics around obviously suicide and all those things, which I assume stem from those issues in some cases, it just seems like it's just escalating at like unbelievable rate. And like I know quite a few people have committed suicide and taken their own life that were going through those issues, and it just seems that it's like everywhere you turn that it's just like, well, was this always there? Like, was it there? Like, is it just now that we, as you said, through social media and things that we hear about these things a lot more often, or it's getting reported on a lot more often? Like, it's quite scary, I guess, from my perspective at least.
Yeah, definitely. And thank you for sharing that. That's really sad and big for you to carry in your life. I think suicide is escalating because we lack connection. So a lot of people are always like, if I've got an addiction, I've got to be sober.
Sure.
If you've got an addiction, it's the key is actually to be connected because there's a reason why that substance is being used to avoid a life that you're not loving. Suicide is just an escalation of such emotional pain that the best way out is through taking your own life. Prevention of that is connection. So re-engagement in friendships, re-engagement. And when you feel really bad, you generally don't want to connect with anyone.
Yeah, it's probably a catch-22, isn't it?
It is a catch-22, and it's the more, and also like the more vulnerable you are, the more help you receive.
Sure.
But when you're in that suffering stage, you don't want to be connected to anyone because you think you're worthless, and you don't want to be vulnerable because you're worried about getting hurt. So the conversations around, hey, you're allowed to be vulnerable. You're not going okay.
Yeah.
And knowing the warning signs and being confident and empowered to take action if your friends are not okay, and also giving people the opportunity to connect to each other more in a more authentic, actual way. Yeah. And I think it is escalating. And people are just unhappy. There's a lot of unhappy people. Yeah. There's more to be unhappy about, and the perceptions of happiness are often quite unattainable as well. Yeah. So I think if we minimalize our lives, our perceptions of happiness can be more simple. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you think, what effect do you think that, I guess, social media kind of gets blamed a lot for that? What effects do you think that has? Is it just the fact that we can compare ourselves to other people so quickly because it's obviously in our face? Do you think that's the main driver, or do you think it's something else?
I think we just see each other's highlight reel. Yeah. It's not true vulnerability. And some people rock vulnerability online, but it's not how we were first taught to use it. Yeah. So I think it's just the highlight reel. And if you feel like you're living in a low light reel, seeing the highlight reel is obviously, it's such a contrast and comparison. So definitely the comparison, and just it's so many layers of it. So family life and past traumas, and so one loss. So say if we lose our pet that we love, it's devastating. We have a cycle of grief. But then if we lose our job, our partner, and someone else dies in our life, it can be a trifecta or more than a trifecta. And that is what can cause a spiral. Okay. So multiple traumas can be a predecessor of things going downhill very rapidly. And then social media is a factor, a small factor of that. Yeah, sure. But self-perception is where it starts. If you already feel worthless and then multiple bad things happen, or you perceive them as bad, then you generally have a long way to crawl out of the bottom of the well, if that makes sense. And
I suppose the lack of education, I assume, is getting better now. Yeah. My brother's a teacher at the moment in primary school, and he says obviously there's a lot more emphasis on the education side of it, but I assume you and myself that there wasn't really ever talked about going through school, I guess. I guess it's probably one of those things that when do you learn to cope, those coping mechanisms, as you said, where do you turn? What do you do to try and learn that yourself?
That's a brilliant question. Honestly, I think people only start learning when something bad happens and they have to reach out and they're kind of Google. Yeah. It definitely wasn't taught in schools for us, hey? No. I think it's just literally, if something bad happens, you start to reach out and find things. Yeah. Which, now that it's getting encouraged in schools more, it's fantastic because people can kind of know before it gets bad. Yeah, definitely. Which is good preventative skills. Yeah.
Do you find you're treating males or females more, or is it across the board it's even, or?
Yeah, look, I think women reach out for therapy more than men do. Yep. I have a really diverse clientele. I treat men, women, and I treat a lot of people in the LGBTQI field as well. So lots of different diversity for me. Yeah. But I do know statistically women generally feel more comfortable talking about their feelings and their lives than men do. But I think men do really well with strategies from care. Okay. Yeah.
Do you see it changing? Do you see more men speaking up, or is it still pretty skewed?
I think it changes as society changes. I think this could be a 10-hour podcast. Yeah, sure. But I think when and look, I have a very, very open view of all life, but I think when they started to get good and to get talking and they started to build communities and started to have more interaction about it. Yeah. And then then they started to feel victimized about different movements that were happening, and they started to feel like the bad guys as a collective. And so everyone's male seemed to retreat after that. And then I think it's just people are starting to dip their toe back into going, okay, maybe I'm not the bad guy. Yeah. Maybe I'm, how do I help? How do I function? Help. So, I think it's starting to, there've been waves of what I've noticed, but I think it depends on, again, where they live,
Yeah.
who they live with, what they've grown up with or not grown up with, or
Yeah.
what level of suffering they're in.
Yeah.
But I would love if more guys were just like, you know what, I want what women get. Like, like I want that too.
Yeah.
So, and because women are fighting for the other stuff, so I think it should be an equal rising together. Dream world, Noni.
Everyone gets better.
Yes.
Yeah. So if we, obviously following in line with the theme of the podcast, the Young Money podcast, if we talk about the mental health and money,
yes,
which again is probably another massive rabbit hole that we could spend 10 hours on, but what effects do you see, or if you see, money having on people's lives, relationships, obviously just their mental health in general?
Yeah, it's probably one of the biggest things.
Okay.
It's one of the biggest barriers to therapy. It's one of the biggest barriers to connection in their relationships and lives. It's one of the biggest drivers of shame. And it's one of the biggest things that contribute to complete lack of confidence in their life and themselves. So it's huge. It is huge.
I'm glad we've got nothing to talk about. Okay, great.
And that's like the first four.
Yeah. Okay, so let's maybe try and unpack that a bit. Is it a comparison? Do you find it's a comparison of them versus everyone else, or it's like in a relationship? Is it the money playing a factor on whether it's male, female, or both? One person earning less, one like what do you see that on the relationship side?
Yeah, on the relationship side, I actually think it first starts with the internal relationship with money. So if someone doesn't feel worthy or has no money skills or no money literacy, and it's easy to hide that and rack up credit card debt, or to work bust their balls, like work really hard, but not actually get anywhere financially. That starts internally, and then they try and coexist with a relationship. Yeah. And if they don't have the same beliefs, or if they're totally different opposite pages, or if one person does earn more money, there's just such imbalance, or there's already internal imbalance around money. Yeah. So throw in a relationship, and then if you've got two unbalanced people around money, or in imbalanced beliefs, then it's kind of a recipe for continuous conflict. Yeah. Whether it's talked about or not, there will be conflict there. Yeah. Yeah.
And do you spend a lot of time on that?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Couples counselling, absolutely. Yeah. Individual counselling for sure.
And is there a common theme, besides what we just alluded to, but is there a common thread that do you think it's the lack of education? Do you think it's as you said, the internal conflict of not feeling worthy, or what do you think it is?
I would probably, if it was a diagnosis, it would be chronic not enoughness. Okay. And that...
Is that a medical term?
No. I would like it to be chronic... I have prescribed you chronic not enoughness. You need to be more present. Gratitude for what you have. I think it's definitely... So to be deeply honest, it's an inability to take full personal responsibility, because that means being vulnerable and going, I don't know what I'm doing. Yeah. I need education. I need help. Yeah. So it's, it's the lack of worthiness, the chronic not enoughness, and parental beliefs put into that, distilled into that person is a big factor, and then that they're trying to. Often people are trying to keep their partner, but they're not asking how their partner wants to work with them with money. Yeah. So it comes down to shame and vulnerability, really. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
And I see it all the time, obviously, in what I do with the belief systems that get passed down. So none of us have ever been taught well enough about money. Yeah. So then we assume that because our parents are older and maybe they've gone through life a bit more, they've got a bit more experience, which is probably common. So we rely on them, because where else can we rely on to get the information from? So we rely on our parents, but they didn't get a formal education around money. So then we inherit their beliefs. They've obviously inherited their parents' beliefs. Yes. So it just gets passed down. And then when you chat to someone, and I find that as we get older, we are expected to know these things that, well, I'm in my 30s now, I should know what these things about money, but we don't. And then as we get older and older, we more and more expectation that we should know it, and then we don't know it, so we feel worse, and we don't talk about it, and it's just like this complete cycle of going backwards.
Yes.
So then I see people that come in and it's just a mess, and it's like, well, tell me what's happened. Like, I don't know. Like, no one told me about that. No one told me about this. I didn't know. I didn't know any different.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, obviously there's the relationship side that kicks in.
Yeah.
So it's such a minefield,
isn't it? Yeah.
But that's fascinating to know that money does play such a big part in the conversation that you have.
Yeah, it does, and it's definitely generational patterns, and they're almost subconscious. They're not even like conscious driving factors.
Yeah.
And then the challenge that sometimes you see once you start counselling or helping people with money is that then they feel bad because their mum or dad or parents or caregivers never had enough, and when they start getting good with money, they're then going, oh, I'm not honouring my family's, even if it was a bad generational legacy, I'm not honouring my family. I'm doing better than my dad did. Yeah. So they have either scale of it is like, oh, I'm carrying on the legacy of non-literacy around money, or they're like, oh no, I can't do better than my dad. Yeah. So it's again that internal environment shift. And then getting the skills like they need, and I love your work. I love your work. And there needs to be so much more education on financial literacy, because if you didn't have money stress, like how good would life feel? Well, someone put it a really good way the other day. They said we don't, like in our field as financial planners and financial coaches, we don't have money conversations. We have life conversations because, and I've mentioned a few times that there's not many situations, or not many discussions that we have that isn't related to money. Yeah. So it's almost like, and I hate it that that's the case, but it's almost everything that we do is somehow related back to money. Yes. Or limited by money if we don't have enough, limited by money. Yes. And I think it's interesting what you said about the parent side of things, because I think on the one hand they're ashamed by not having enough, and then there's also that select people, which it sounds like a good problem to have, but it's still a problem, that when they have a lot or they are successful, they're embarrassed to show that off to people that maybe don't have enough, or again trying to find that happy medium. Absolutely. Of well, he's successful, he must inherit it, or he must have done something, or I guess everyone kind of targets those people. Yes. Yeah, there's such a lack of understanding of like simply celebrating each other wherever we are in the journey, and being like, you're doing good wherever you are, and if you want to get better, awesome for you. Yeah. And if you've got heaps of money, good for you. Go enjoy that holiday. Like, definitely. Yeah, there's a lot of negativity, I guess, tied around it, and it is life. It's it's money is a human concept. Like, it's imaginary, but it is a factor of life. And I think it can, like, I assume there's obviously the mild cases and there's the extreme cases, and you can see it escalating because you get someone that's maybe more self-conscious than others, so they want to try and keep up appearances, and so they take on the credit card, or they get a nice car, or they do the things that they shouldn't be doing financially. And it's quite a deep or scary slope once that starts to escalate, once those debts start to rise, and then obviously that causes more and more stress around the money and the relationships. It just comes from, well, who are you trying to impress? What are you trying to portray? Yes. To these people that you may or may not even like. Yeah, exactly. Totally, absolutely. That's a huge factor of it. Yeah. And until they learn to like themselves and like be deeply okay with who they are, all the things in the world can't make us feel better. Yeah. And as you said, the highlight reel of social media is a contributing factor to that, unfortunately. Definitely, absolutely. And I mean, like, we could, like, I tend not to blame social media or family, but it's a contributing factor. Like, it definitely triggers people. Yeah. Because you see, your friend with having all these things, and you're like, but we went to the same school, we had the same life. Like, Well, I think like it's obviously always been there. It's always been that competitive nature of who's got the fanciest car in the street, who's got the nicest car in the street, that type of thing. But now it's just in your face 24/7. Yes. So that's just obviously exacerbated that. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And I know a lot of people who have a lot of money, but feel deeply ashamed about ever enjoying it. Because they're like, oh, someone's got less than me, so I'm going to make them feel bad. Yeah. But I think you can live by example. If you have wealth, then show how to use it. Like, and let people be inspired by you. Yeah, definitely. But I'm pretty positive. I have a sunny disposition about everything.
Yeah. So if we talk about money and relationships, which obviously there's another very light topic that I'm sure we can spend 2 minutes on. Do you see a lot of financial abuse in relationships where maybe one person's got more than the other, or they hold them in an abusive state?
Yeah. I see it across the board with financial abuse. So I've seen, parents abuse their children with withholding money, or like whether it be parent and child, whether it be couple of any gender, whether it be even grandchildren who are older and managing an older people's money.
Yeah.
Like it really, money isn't the root of all evil. The way we love money is the root of all evil. So it's a love of it over. So when you're loving money over people, that is definitely the biggest problem. But it runs deep. It runs so down. Good short question, Ross. And it's because often, and a generalization here, the person who is controlling the money has a sense of lack of control, lack of power. It's just bullying. Like financial abuse is just bullying because you're trying to control someone else in the way that money touches all of our lives.
Yeah.
So if you control that over one person, then it's just a form of bullying, which stems from a lack of own personal power and a lack of own personal responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is there any techniques you use or ways you help clients overcome that from the financial abuse perspective? Is it just purely educating them or talking it through, or is there other ways?
Yeah, I think most people don't know that it's really happening, or they're ashamed of it happening, so it's kind of hidden. So both the perpetrator and victim side of it is just a re-education and a rebalancing, because it's not enjoyable to be on either side of the coin. Like it's not enjoyable to be a perpetrator, and it's not enjoyable, well, it depends on the psychology, but it's not enjoyable to be a victim. So it's about re-educating how life can be. Yeah. Because often they just think that is what it is. Yeah. Oh, this is what it is. My mum was always abused this way too, so I'll just relive that. So breaking those generational cycles is really important, and breaking down why you're each enduring that. So why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing this? Yeah. Looking at why that person's doing it, and looking at how we can change the dynamic of the relationship. Yeah. Yeah. And
I think we probably answered this question already, but it's like, how much of a impact do you think that money has on the relationship issues? Would you, if you had it on a scale of like 1 to 5, would it be?
It would be the highest.
Be at the top?
Yeah.
No doubt about it?
No doubt about it. Up the top.
Jeez.
Because people, even people who start to have therapy and they're like, yay, I'm doing good. And if they're being financially abused, that opportunity can be taken away from them. Yeah, okay. So So even when they get a chance to have education, it can be taken away. Yeah. Fascinating. So it's huge.
Yeah. And as you said at the start, that there's the limiting factor of getting help. Unfortunately, probably there's not enough free help out there. Yeah. All the resources aren't there. Yeah. So then it needs to be paid, which then if you don't have money, it's a slippery slope.
And you know what? It touches all levels of socioeconomics. Some very wealthy people still have trouble accessing help. Yeah. And that's why help, there are lots of various forms of help out there. But if help is as easy as possible, then, that's the ideal. That's the world I would like to shape, Ross. Where help is, and that's what you're doing. Yeah. Help is you, like when you showed me through what you do, it's so easy to work with you. Yeah. It's not hard at all. So it's just taking those first steps.
Yeah, I guess it's probably the same.
And talking about it.
Yeah, it's probably the same kind of factors that stop someone coming to see you for help. Yeah. That stop people to come and see me. So it's that I'm embarrassed, I'm ashamed, I should be more successful. I should know what I'm doing now that I'm 35. I've got kids, I've got a house. I should know these things, but I don't. Yeah. I'm curious to know, and if you're comfortable with me asking this question, do you see money and relationship issues purely opposite sex couples, or affect same sex couples as well?
They affect all couples.
All couples?
All couples.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. they definitely affect same-sex couples, and they definitely affect opposite-sex couples.
Yeah.
All genders. Money just touches everyone. Sometimes positively,
Yeah.
sometimes negatively, but yeah. I think if you look at a same-sex relationship, so for myself, being two women, it is a different dynamic than being opposite sex. I guess we both assume that we're the breadwinners.
Yeah.
And then I think there's from my own perspective, good communication about when you need time to be less of a performance-based person.
Sure.
But I think most people are trying to strive towards something.
Yeah.
But good communication within a relationship is important. But money still factors into every gender.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the reason I ask is obviously the gender pay gap and the
Oh
stereo.
yeah, that's fun.
Yeah. Another little easy topic.
What was the bombshells?
Yeah. Well, I guess obviously the stereotype is of the man's working, the females at home, and that's why I was curious to know, like in same-sex couples.
Yeah.
It's interesting that money is still an issue.
Still an issue, yeah. Look, I think the gender pay gap definitely does affect women. I've always been an entrepreneur, so I haven't really. I've always kind of been in the boys' club. I've always kind of been one of the guys in a way. So I haven't experienced it as much.
Yep.
But that's quite common for lesbians, to be honest. It's like we can sometimes be high, similar to men in the high achievement field.
Sure.
But I can't speak personally for gay males, but I do know that they can get really good opportunities because of their gender. And yeah, I guess, it still does affect you. It still is a component of your relationship.
Yeah.
So whether it all comes down to the internal environment, the communication, but money will always factor in. So, but I think handily with two women, either of you can have the baby. So if you want a baby,
yeah.
So it doesn't, there's opportunities that way too.
Yeah.
So we don't have to sacrifice giving up work if you don't want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's oh god, it's a Pandora's box for us. But yeah, I think for the work that you and I do around money and counselling and helping people reclaim their financial understanding, we can't assume that anyone isn't that affected by it.
Yeah, and I think the hardest thing is, as you said earlier, the fact that you can hide it. That's the most fascinating thing. That, like, when I first started working in this field, I obviously speaking to a lot of people, so I could see lots of different incomes and like what the affordability of cars and houses and things like that. And very early on, I started, like, after seeing a number of clients, I started speaking to someone. You obviously look at the car they're driving, run some numbers of what that looks like. You'd see the house they're living in. And then you speak to them, so I'm earning this much. And it's just like, well, unless I'm missing something, that doesn't add up.
Yeah.
But on the outside, everyone's like, well, he or she's so successful.
Yes.
But I'm sitting there going, no, it doesn't. Like, it's just not, the numbers don't add up for me. Like what I see on a day-to-day basis, it's not working.
Yes.
And then you see other people who are so successful and keep going. And unless, because we don't have our bank balances or our debt position on our shirt, on our t-shirt, or on our social media page every single day.
Yes.
You don't know if the person that you work with or live with or your neighbour is successful or not.
Yeah.
They might look successful, but under the surface, it's not. And I think that's I don't know how to overcome that, but it's such a hard thing because it's so easy to get yourself into debt. Yeah. Able to get credit cards, and there's obviously, if you want to borrow money off someone, they're not going to stop you.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's so many layers. As you said, so many layers to it.
So many layers.
Which is hard.
I love watching people's body language, and I love watching people's monitoring people's stress levels. I mean, that's a huge part of my job.
Sure.
Is to understand when someone's escalating behaviour and when someone's at risk. So I've had personal experience where I moved out of home at 17. I was given a credit card by my bank at 18. I've made mistakes.
Yep.
I've only in the last few years have I chopped up all my credit cards, paid everything off, and read Barefoot Investor and started to have great financial wisdom. Before then, no, my early 20s were fraught with mistakes, terrible mistakes. But I'm okay with that because I learned from those mistakes, and I'm quite happy to say I had mistakes because who hasn't?
Yeah, definitely.
So I think the concept that we have to know it all is very stressful within itself.
Yeah.
And I generally watch people's body language and their stress levels, which will attest to just how well they might be going in life and just how much help they might need.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for the compassionate route of going, you look really stressed without, while someone might look pristinely dressed, but clench their fists all the time or like always have tight shoulders or hold themselves in a way, different power positions that people can hold themselves in.
Yeah.
So like, if we have our hands behind our head and we're like, stop, we might feel quite powerful. But if we're always sitting with like everything kind of like tucked in or even arms crossed is a big self-soothing behavior. So it's not negative. It's actually, oh, I'm not okay. I'm scared. I generally watch a lot of people's animalistic behaviors.
So what I do when I assess people's finances, you're doing on their body language.
Yes, definitely. So you're running the numbers of their like background, and I'm like, I'm running your numbers, but in a gentle way. I'm not like being like, what are you doing? Yeah. So
definitely.
Yeah. So that's probably a way to look out for how to support your friends, family, and other people. And probably maybe a good indicator of how you could look for people who might need help.
And that's obviously good signs of general stress levels. Is there anything else that you can suggest for helping, I guess, or noticing those signs?
Yeah. So one thing that I'm quite passionate about is actually protecting children. So signs of something stressful happening to children is constant bedwetting, and any sort of like UTIs or conditions which are strange. This is more on the sexual assault field. Okay. But it's important because no one's really told about it. I've had multiple clients go, this has been happening for years, and no doctor, no other psychologist or counsellor had ever told me about these things. Okay. So constant bedwetting, UTIs, lack of eating, lack of losing disinterest, super clingy. So if kids start to be super clingy, and this is outside of developmental norms. Okay. So there are times and phases where kids are like, hold me. Sure. Never let me go. But the sort of any sort of abnormal peaks in that sort of behaviour is worth exploring and understanding. In adolescence and early 20s, I think it definitely comes down to how they recklessly do things. So if there's a lot of uncalculated risks, that includes money. So uncalculated risks with money, uncalculated risks with their body, outside of norms, all sex is good sex, power to the people. But anything that's highly risky or sort of dangerous behaviour, any sort of drink driving and all that sort of behaviour is something to look for. Sure. And then in sort of older ages, just disengaging in life, hating their job, lacking purpose, not doing hobbies, not doing exercise, disengaging from friends. They're all sort of very generalised and specific ways that people would disengage with their life and have mental health issues. And a big stressor of that can be money. Yeah. So just engaging in life, not seeing your friends because maybe you can't afford the coffee. Yeah, and I think that what you alluded to before around the connection that people need to obviously help them improve. Obviously, the limiting factor on that is one, obviously, I don't know, it's a Gold Coast thing or Australian thing that when we socialise, we drink, and if someone doesn't want to drink or that, then they're like, well, I can't socialise because everyone else is. But then there's the money side of it of, well, in order to be social, I need to be spending money. Yeah. So it's just again, it's just so many layers. Yes. Or inhibiting factors that stop people from doing those things that, as you said, they need that socialising or they need that connection. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that is, I guess, the conundrum we find ourselves in is people need to be doing more connection, but identifying the barriers that they can overcome. Yeah. Knowing that, because often we can go, I don't have enough money, I won't. But maybe there's free groups or things that, just even hanging out with a friend. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. Yes, the good old Aussie drinking culture. Everything in balance. Yeah. Everything in balance is definitely. Okay.
Now, we try and go through a kind of similar questions for
Sure.
every guest that comes on the show, so feel free to pass it at any time if you don't feel comfortable. But as you've got older, has your beliefs or behaviours around money changed with age? And if so, how?
Absolutely. I've respected it more. I've understood that I can work with it, that it's not trying to control me. I'm actually in the driver's seat with it. And that I love being a minimalist. I don't need heaps of stuff. I like quality stuff.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I used to, in my youth, cheap fashion was so big to me. I loved cheap fashion. And then as I've grown up, I've become very environmentally aware and very money-wise and gone, I need quality, not quantity. So that's been a big thing.
Okay. The minimalism,
Yes.
what has that been over time? Did something happen that you were like, holy shit, I don't need all these things? Or has it always been there?
I don't know when it started. I think it was just maybe the more I got into kind of like deeper into mental health and even into yoga was just you don't need just a letting go. Letting go. It's so peaceful to cull and let go and not to accrue more.
Yeah.
And again, environmental factors as well. Yeah.
Okay. What do you know about money now that you wish you'd been taught earlier on in life?
Good question. I always loved compounding interest. I was a bit of a nerd about that forever. But I would love to know that don't spend more than you earn and get into have a spending plan. Like a budget will potentially disintegrate your brain for a while if you don't apply it. Like the stress of a budget and then having to apply yourself to a budget can be very stressful. But if you have a spending plan and you know what you can spend, it's so relaxing and you don't have to like worry about it. And have automatic savings, automatic spendings, and live below your means, not over it. Which I would have been told. And that's like so simple, but it's like so important.
Yeah.
And get help and don't be ashamed to be like, I up with money real bad. Help.
Yeah. I always try and tell people that there's no such thing as a stupid question. So you get a phone call. Hey Ross, I know this is probably a stupid question, but it's like, no, it's not. Like, if you don't know the answer, it's not a stupid question. And like, I always struggle with people like, oh, he's so stupid or she's so stupid with their money.
Yeah.
And I was like, my definition of being stupid is if you know something and then you choose not to do it or you don't do what you should do, that to me is stupid. Like, you know what you should do, you know the answer, but you do something different. That's stupidity.
Yeah.
Whereas if you don't know, if you've never been taught, I struggle to call someone stupid. If they've never ever been taught about this thing or they don't know what it is, you can't call someone stupid. Like, maybe they should have learnt about it, that's a different story, but if they've never been taught, never learnt about it, then it's hard to put that, I can't call someone stupid.
Totally. I totally agree. And it's like, it's as if like one day you wake up and you come from a culture that never talks about money. And then the next day you read a book or you meet someone like yourself and you get education, you're like, I'm in a whole new money culture. It's not like when you've been in the culture that has had no financial literacy that you're like, oh, I should know that. Yeah. You don't know what you don't know. Yeah, 100%. You really don't, particularly around money. Yeah. So it's so important to talk about that.
And I always talk about the fact that like you leave, maybe you work part-time and stuff while you're at school, but then you leave school and it's like, okay, here's your first paycheck. Please carry on. Like, you're an adult now. So you'll sort it out. Yeah. It's like, cool.
You're like, help.
Yeah, what should I do?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Best money advice you've ever received?
Oh, that is a good one. Well, there are many. But I think it was forgive yourself for past money mistakes. So deeply forgive yourself for the times where you've made perceived mistakes. Yeah. And take action on fixing them.
ASAP.
Yes, action. Just take action. Yeah. Don't live in the self-pity of how much you've stuffed up. Yeah. But take action to go, okay, well, that was a past and I forgive myself. And now I can do everything and anything possible to change.
Yeah. Excellent. Love it. You may have already answered some of these already, but top money saving tips or hacks that you personally use?
Yep, so I have like splurge account, fire extinguisher, all the things from Barefoot Investor.
Excellent.
It's always 10, 20. So I save 10%, 10%, 20%.
Yep.
Both me and my wife do every week. And we just watch it grow. And then we put it towards our mortgage. And we want to invest when the time's right. And
Excellent.
yeah.
So you recommend other people do the same?
Yes. It means that when we take each other out to lunch or something like that, you don't have the stress of like, oh my God, do we have that in the bank? You just know. You just use the account and you don't ever need to look at it.
Yeah.
Like you don't have fear of like checking your bank account,
Yeah.
which is normal. And I think everyone's experience of going, I don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
You just know it's there because it's done the work. And it might take time, but the time's going to pass anyway.
Yeah.
Like when you do 10, 10, 20 for 3 months, you've already got money there and you're like, oh my God, that money was always there. I just wasn't having a right relationship with it. Yeah. But I forgive myself.
And then take action.
And then I take action.
Yeah.
You need a financial team around you.
Yeah.
And that's like, I treat myself like a racehorse. So like I have the best nutrition, I have the best gym, I have the best like yoga, I have the best like financial teams and education, I have the best like mentors and circle around me because I want to win at life.
Yeah.
Because I've had a sad background.
Yeah.
So I want to win at life.
That's a great way to look at it.
Yeah.
And you being the number one asset.
Yes.
You being at the top.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So tomorrow you win $1 million in the lotto.
Yeah.
What would be the first thing you do and the first thing you buy?
Ooh. Okay, so $1 million. First thing I do is invest it and use the dividends to support the charities that I believe in. First thing I buy, can I say more corgis?
No.
I guess we already have 2. That's pretty greedy.
Minimalist, except when
Minimalist.
it sticks when it comes to dogs.
I've been like 14 corgis. I am the queen. Oh my gosh, there's nothing that I would buy that I don't have, if that makes sense. I really love my life. So I would just make the money work for me so that I could have more opportunities. So I believe in opportunities. Is that boring? I want more corgis for us. I'm getting more corgis.
I like that answer. No guilty pleasures that you happily go and splurge.
My own vegan chef.
Own vegan chef.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Oh, that would be life.
In-house.
In-house.
In-house vegan chef.
There you go. In-house vegan chef. I'm creating jobs.
Yeah.
That's
Excellent.
what I would do.
Well, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Rob.
As I said, I'm sure we could spend 10 hours talking about the intricacies of money, relationships, and mental health. But I think this has been maybe a good starting point. We can touch back and get another episode in maybe later on in the year. Where's the best place for people to find more about you and the work you do?
The best place for people to find me is at www.croftconfidence.com.
Nice name.
Thank you. So it's my family name that I named myself at 18 to get freedom.
Excellent.
So, and then confidence is how people leave when they see me.
Excellent.
Yeah. So
Any final tips or words of wisdom for the listeners?
Listen to yourself. Nothing is ever a bad question. You're not broken. You're going to be okay.
Excellent. Well, thanks for being on board.
Thank you so much, Ross.
Thanks for stopping by to check out another episode of the Young Money Podcast. Of course, if anything discussed in today's podcast episode has brought up any issues for yourself, please reach out to a friend, a family member, or someone like Noni for assistance. Links to our website and socials can be found in the show notes below. And if you'd like to check out all of the past episodes as well as the guest profiles, you can do that at rossmarais.com/podcast, where you can also sign up to get our newsletter where we deliver money resources and tips into your inbox each week. Hope you have a great day.
If you've enjoyed this episode of the Young Money Podcast, make sure you subscribe to keep up to date with all the latest episodes. And feel free to leave a like, comment, and share it with a friend.